And we're live with the Chester Sky Show. Today we're joined by Sergio Yahenda. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Oh, yeah, it's my pleasure. How are you doing?
It's good. Sergio is a fellow musician. We've actually had gigs together, and he's still creating music and going on and kicking ass right now.
Yeah, watch out, all you asses. I'm coming for you.
Yeah, I saw you released actually a few tracks in the last few months. You've got Trying, and you have I'm a Bad Boy, right? Is that right? Bad Guy, sorry. The Bad Guy.
No, I think I'm a Bad Boy. For the remix, for sure. Yeah, the song's called The Bad Guy. And the other one is Trying. Trying I did with my good friend Michelle Parisi, who she's the author of a great book that's out right now called Alone, a Love Story. Ooh. Which was also a podcast that you can download 3 seasons of.
Where can listeners listen to that?
Oh, like cbc.com if you just want to go and check it out. But it's available on all the podcast outlets like iTunes and whatnot. And I highly recommend it. I mean, it's just what she wrote the whole thing. She recorded the whole thing. She composed. She didn't compose. She she produced all the music for it and put it all together. Like, it really is her project. She had an engineer to assist her, but that was it. Like, the rest of it is just right out of her mind onto the page and then onto the mic. So
what's the story behind what's the theme of the story of the topic? What was that?
Alone, a Love Story.
Yeah.
She was married. She split with her husband harshly. There was some infidelity. She goes through a real journey to try to find herself because it blew up her whole world. She actually, like, the day that the news dropped, she calls it the day of the bomb. It really blew up her life. And then this is her telling about what it felt like to try and put herself back together, to put her life back together, to find out who she really was at the core of it all. And the wonderful thing about it is that it's not a kind of it's not like a kiss and tell or anything vindictive about it. Like, she never calls anybody any names. She just talks about how she felt when the things that happened to her.
Journey of self-discovery.
Yeah, it's magnificent. And she does it with humor. She does it with poetry, and like, it's just really nice to hear her talk. She has a great voice to listen to as she tells her story.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where if you can figure out how to turn your diary entries into a novel, I mean, you got your source material.
Yeah, that's exactly what she did. I remember I was there when she was going through her journal entries and saying, "This would be good for the book. This would be good for the book." Putting up, and then like a closet door covered with Post-it notes, all arranged in the sequence in which she was going to write all of the little things, and moving Post-it note from this area to this area. It'll be in this chapter, and this will be in this chapter. It was basically what she did. She looked into her diary and turned it into a book.
Oh, wow, that's good. That Post-it note actually is kind of an interesting way to rearrange a book, because it turns into like a crime scene. You're navigating. Where does this string lead to? Where does this?
Yeah. Especially when she wrote it in a kind of a non-linear fashion. She kind of told stories as they came, and it had its own flow. It wasn't this happened, then this happened, then this happened. So, yeah, that system really worked for her.
I've always found it strange how once you start to write about your life, you start to connect events that weren't connected, and you're like, oh no, this led to this.
Yeah.
This led to that.
Yeah. I'm not a consistent journal keeper. I'm pretty sporadic, but I notice that when, every couple of years when I visit my journal, I look back and go, oh, wow, this keeps on happening over and over again. I should really kind of think about that.
There's a theme.
It's exactly what seeing a therapist might do for you. You're telling out your stories, and then they go, I kind of hear a constant theme running through. Okay. All right.
Seems you have this personality pattern.
Yeah.
No, I keep a diary myself. How long have you been keeping your journal?
Oh gosh, it's really is so sporadic. It's like I do journal entries about as often as Guns N' Roses puts out albums. I mean, they're always epic and meaningful, and when you dig into the stuff that I'm talking about, it must be very interesting. But there's so many gaps; it must be infuriating for anyone else but me to read.
Yeah, I find the journal entries do change over the years too. Like the first time when I started, I was like a little kid, so I was writing like, "What did I eat for breakfast?" And that was like the most important part of the day, right? It's like, well, today's food sucked. I guess it wasn't a good day. And now today you're like, okay, if I'm going to write in the journal entry, I'm only writing like once every week or 2 weeks. So it's got to be like something profound I put into this, right?
Yeah. Well, I felt that pressure too. It's not, I don't know. You got, like you said, your journal entries change over time. And I guess the way that you think about yourself and relate to yourself, and even your writing style changes over time. I mean, it must. Not in my experience, but it must.
Well, it's kind of like that with music as well. How would you say your music's changed over each album or each single release?
Oh, it's just gotten 200% better every single time I put it out there. No, I don't.
No, it's not, that's actually a valid statement, because the music can only get better. You're not going to make a worse album with more information, right?
No, you're not going to make a worse album, but if you don't catch yourself learning from what you've done, or at least have some kind of effective feedback, you'll end up doing the same thing over and over again, not realizing what you're doing, making the same mistake over and over again, whether it's a compositional one, or for me, my challenges are all production. I have fun songwriting. I have fun writing lyrics. That part is almost easy compared to going through the production, because I got these big ideas. I grew up in HMVs all across Southern Ontario, roaming from HMV to HMV, and like working at them. And my music, when people ask me what kind of music I like, well, back in the day, I would say I don't have a particular style that I like. I just like songs, particular songs. It's a song by song basis. Even with artists that I like, even my favorite artists, there would still be crappy songs that I don't want to listen to, things I would skip. But having that kind of eclectic taste, that fed the music that I was making. So it was kind of funny. I was talking to somebody about meeting you and first hearing your stuff, and there was the first track I heard was kind of a classical feeling piano over jungle drums. And I'm like, that's the first thing I tried to produce as soon as I got my gear set up.
Yeah.
It's funny. Yeah. So that's what I've been always trying to do, mash up genres, but always with a little bit of soul to it, like a little bit of emotional stuff. I can't do anything that's not, when you peek inside, deeply emotional, either sad or extremely happy. Like I'm not just a one-trick pony, but there's always got to be some kind of, I don't know, some little emotional center, and then just throw lots of fancy clothes on it.
Well, yeah, your shows are always very, very, you actually put a lot of detail into your shows. You make sure that you got the color, you got the clothing set up. No, you put a whole package together.
Oh, you noticed that? Okay, that's cool.
Well, that's a conscious thing. You don't just accidentally put on a good visual performance.
You're right. I put a lot of pressure on myself to do that as well, to put on a big show. So I show up with the audio gear, the lighting gear. Well, actually, it was because of the other fellow who was performing with us that night. He brought the laser machine. When he did, and I saw the footage of it, I went out and bought I tried to get the exact same one. I was fascinated with the laser show, the visual aspect, and I try and dance around and move around as much as I can on the little stages that I perform on.
Yeah, you really have to come up with new ways to dance depending on how the stage looks, don't you?
I've been on stages that were so rickety that as I would dance, my gear would wobble. I'd be dancing beside the keyboard, and the keyboard would start swaying side to side. I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to a little bit less James Brown, a little more Johnny Cash, maybe. I don't know.
You become a completely different musician based on the stage.
It's always, it's been a thing.
No, I don't know.
I was going to say, I remember that the first time that I went on stage, I actually started dancing because I was so nervous that my legs would shake if I sat on a stool. So I sit on a stool with the guitar and try to sing my song, but I have one leg shaking and not to any kind of rhythm, just like 4 times my heartbeat. It would shake. So after the first song, I'm like, I don't know if the audience is distracted by my shaking leg, but I know I am. So I just pulled the stool back, and I said something cocky to the audience, like, "No, you can't sing rock and roll sitting down." Hold on. And then just started moving my feet, and a lot of it was sliding around. So now I know that I have to wear my slippery shoes when I go on stage, so they'll slide around, and no stool.
Yeah, that's one of those ways to cope with stage fright, right? I mean, you got to figure out a way. It's not something that you just get over by accident. You gotta deal with it every single time.
How do you deal with it?
I dealt with it by having a lot of bad shows. You go through the worst of the worst, and when you come out of it, you're like, oh, okay, all right, I've seen how bad it could
be. I survived, so
yeah. My tactic was to suffer.
Yeah, you did it the hard way. Well, good for you, though. It's important.
Well, I mean,
with my old band, we used to have to say like we enjoy the good shows and learn from the bad ones. And we did a lot of learning. We learned so much.
That's right. You were in a band before you went on the solo, right?
A couple of different ones. I'm referring to my band Gryffen, where I was lead singer and wrote the lyrics and did the music as a co-production with my fellow bandmates.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of material like in the bank and in my mind that I also wanted them to just do. So it was a constant struggle to like produce music as a group and produce music that I had already pre-imagined and get them to express. So that was fun, but challenging. And then I had another band called Hibou, which is the French word for owl. And that's where I was doing all the music, and my friend Tracy was doing the singing and songwriting. Mostly, we collaborate on some of the but she was doing all the lyrics. And we had fun doing that. We just the two of us with the beats on the laptop, and I play guitar and sing background. That was fun because the pressure was off. I wasn't the lead guy, so I could, dance around a little bit more, and didn't put so much pressure on myself to carry the whole thing. But
how do you find it's what's your experience of songwriting in that case? Is that since you're not really writing for yourself, you're kind of tailoring it for other people, right?
It's almost easier. Actually, I just finished a piece. I was just about to post it on Facebook that my friend Stella is doing a Dungeons and Dragons live streaming game, and she asked me to produce some music for her, some background music. So I did a piece that it had to be super long because on these shows, like there's a show called what's it called, Epic Roll, I think. Anyways, they do live D&D games, and these games go on for hours, and they just have the same background music looping over and over. So I had to do like an 8-minute long track, and it had to morph, and it had to have sections but be in the background, but be sonically interesting enough to paint the picture. So it sounds like some Game of Thrones style, Harmon Quest style sounding stuff, and getting instruction and getting a task given to me and then parameters set, and even like I want it to sound like this. That is the best. That's the most fun, because then I've got my path laid out before me, and now I can infuse it with whatever little tricks I have, but I know that I'm working towards something that someone else is going to use and appreciate and like. So I like that a lot. I like get given jobs like that.
No, it's true. When you're writing for yourself, it's more like, oh no, how am I feeling? When you're writing for someone else, it's problem solving. Oh,
yeah, very much so. Problem solving. I love that. I love problem solving.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun way to take on. Maybe you'll be doing more of that, more film scoring. Sounds like you're heading in that direction potentially.
I would love it. All I need is clients. For a while, I tried to do that. Tried to have a business of that, and that was way back, like before 2009. I was trying to set up a music for hire thing, but running a business and networking and marketing,
a lot of
boy, am I bad at it. Yeah,
a lot of things.
I would love to have someone who could do that for me. Have an agent, whatever it is, someone to find the work for me. That would be great. Would not be great for all of us, but yeah, I'm no longer willing to put so much energy and effort into that for its own sake, but. For my own material, we're all forced to do that, so I have to do that.
For this Dungeons and Dragons game, what can the listeners go to check that out?
Oh yeah, let me take a second to look it up. I'll find the Facebook posting, but it was called Charisma Roll, I think. Let me just double check.
Dungeons and Dragons. You need a theme song for your epic quests. Here it is. It's coming.
Well, I will give you the I'm pretty sure it's called Charisma Roll. So I'll send you the link for you to post somewhere. But it's going to be a regular show. But the first one's on tonight, which is Monday. So I don't know when this will be airing, but there'll be repeated episodes, and hopefully fresh music every time. Not every time, but fresh music from me. And they are going to play songs in the intermission. So she's being very kind and playing a couple of my tracks during the intermission of the show as well. Like a couple of Yahenda songs.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I find that the soundtrack of the game is really important to keeping your interest. Otherwise, your mind doesn't stay absorbed in it as much, It really is important.
It's great for setting a mood. I remember playing. I was helping Stella out by she wanted to try this, games mastering thing because she loved playing the games, but had a hard time finding a crew of people, like-minded people to do it with, to have games with. She needed practice becoming a games master. So I was one of her first, lab rodents. Or dungeon rodents to practice with, and it was so much fun. It was like after 3 hours, I still wanted to keep going. The quest was done, but I was like, "What shall we do now, gents? Shall we go with for an ale? Like who's who's in?
Come on, I need another quest.
How about the quest for drinks after the show?
Yes.
So I it was super fun to be a part of, and she showed me a couple of online shows that do the thing, and I remember watching Harmon Quest and wanting to be a part of that as well. So yeah, I would do it anytime. I highly recommend everybody watching. It's super.
So the quest itself it sounds like it's live action then, is that correct?
It's several people will be streaming their faces, and there'll be, I think, a games map on the screen as well, and that's about it. So then the music playing, we hear the voices, and we'll show Stella, mastering the whole session. Charisma Mod. Yeah, Charisma Mod. That's what it's called. A Dungeons and Dragons comedy live stream.
Oh, it's live storytelling. Interactive, it changes throughout.
It's improvised. It's not so much interactive with viewers, but it's interactive with the cast members themselves, the gamers. Yeah.
Influenced by current events. No, that's cool. I like that. I haven't heard that before, actually.
It's going to be really, really fun. I'm going to tune in tonight, and then it's whenever it airs. Really, I'll watch this anytime.
It's one of the things, storytelling, that we don't really think about too much. I mean, 100 years ago, something we used to gather around and literally tell each other stories. Yeah. And now, like even radio that's what it was. And then suddenly we're like, oh no, we don't need to do storytelling. And then people are like, oh, that was fun though.
Yeah. One of my favorite podcasts I was telling somebody about is called The Thrilling Adventure Hour, where they do like radio show, an old-timey radio show, kind of radio plays. But it's written by a couple of dudes, Ben Acker and Ben Blacker, who are really smart, really savvy writers. So they take like modern elements, but then put them into this old style radio play. One of their regular vignettes is about these married mediums. They're like a well-to-do couple from the 1920s. They're bon vivants. They're constantly drinking. They're drunk all the time. They love their drink, and they take it well. Like they're not drunks, but they just love to drink, have fun, be with each other and no one else. And but the only thing is that they're mediums, so they can hear ghosts. So ghosts and spirits and the undead, and everyone keeps on knocking on their door, asking for help. And they're like, "Oh God, what is it now?" They're so adorable. So this is one of the radio plays. The other one is Sparks Nevada, Marshall on Mars, and it's like a space western. It's like Gunsmoke, but it takes place on Mars. So you have the funky aliens are the varmints, and they got to go satellite rustling, and they got to, it's super, super fun. So these are the silly ideas, but it's all just listening to it like you're listening to a radio show. And
sounds like they do voices for multiple characters too.
Yeah. They do multiple. Yeah, the voices are the best part when you hear Spark Nevada's raspily raw, and then his sidekick is the tracker. What's his name? Oh gosh, I can't remember. But he's like a kind of a Spock character, so he sounds very stiff and pronounces every consonant. Croach the tracker. Yeah, and he's a citizen of Mars, or as they call it, Galut Proct Aw.
Probably an alien, just a slime ball. One of those.
He is slimy. Yes, he is blue and slimy. Yeah. And they constantly wear coverings on their feet. I think feet are like boobies to them. You never show anybody your feet.
Oh.
So anyways, radio plays, storytelling. That's where it's at. One of the things about good songwriting songwriting that I try and improve upon is the storytelling aspect. I've had some songs where I tell a story and it's kind of like, it's as long as American Pie by Don McLean, and I figure, okay, no, it's one thing to try and write an opera, but if you want to get a pop song out there that tells a story, you got to edit. So editing becomes a key factor in
So how do you approach it when you're writing a story for your song?
I was given some conflicting advice. It's in the last couple of years. Someone pointed out to me that all my songs are 6 minutes long.
Well, that's not a bad thing, is it?
I have a lot to say.
It's not necessarily a flaw.
Well, when you have nothing, but when they're all long like that, I don't know. But anyways, then the other piece of advice someone gave me was that you gotta leave room in between. Like your songs are so wordy, got to leave some room in between to kind of soak up what you've just heard and reflect on it, or give the audience some breaks. I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right, I guess so. So taught me to edit in two different ways, both for overall length, but also editing in the content so that you have dynamics. You can't just you got to have loud, quiet with the music, but also with the content.
Some variation, give just the ears a break and give them some kind of direction, right?
Yeah.
Guiding them throughout the song. No, that's a good approach to it.
I remember there was a musician I got involved with. Actually, Tracy and I got involved with when back in our days in Hibou, and he was a great pianist. And he wrote like very, I don't want to say avant-garde, but like instrumental piano pieces that weren't classical. They're modern, but still with an eye towards classical style. Anyways, he wanted to put on a show and wanted to feature Tracy and me singing on a couple of his numbers, mostly Tracy singing, and then I think he was just nice to me to throw me on the track as well. But when he performed the stuff live, we were there and we were performing with him, and he wanted to do the show like, I don't know, 8-10 songs or whatever, but he wanted to do it with no interruptions between the pieces. So it's just he starts playing and he plays for like 2 hours.
Ooh.
The concept, and I don't know if to him, I don't know, it was exhausting. As an audience member, it was sonically exhausting, and also just as an audience member trying to, give attention. And we're in a bar, and it's kind of a small bar, so big grand piano in a small bar, you kind of have to pay attention.
Yeah.
And he was asking for quiet, and so it was too much. I learned that day that like I'm never going to try that. You got to give breathers in between the tracks. And sometimes I take the time to write down banter between the songs, or emergency string break banter.
Yeah. Oh,
break a string on your guitar.
Your case, you're going at that guitar.
yeah. I've broken a string on stage like more times than I care to remember.
Yeah. No, I it's one of those things where audience kind of wants to clap between songs too. Like they want to do it. It's not obligated. Yeah. They feel like they like doing that.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah, they want to appreciate. They want to have breaks. They want to have a change of emotional energy. I don't smoke anymore, but I really loved going out for a cigarette and coming back in just as a change of environment, just to refresh. Even if, especially to go out and change the energy between a conversation that you're having with somebody, or meet new people or whatever. Breaks like that are really important in shows. So I like to run an intermission in my shows. I never do a show without an intermission myself.
Well, you kind of need an intermission just for the audience as well. I mean, yeah, for you, maybe you get tired as well, but I mean, the audience wants a break. They want to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And you gotta give them a chance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I even when you go to see like a professional show, you'll have like 3 acts, and each of the act there's a break. So you gotta have, you gotta have something, right? So tell me about these last 2 songs that you made, Trying and...
okay. I was just thinking about that as well. So the reason that I brought up Michelle Parisi and Alone a Love Story was because the song Trying was one that I recorded with her. Trying, it's a very simple song. It's the same 4 chords, throughout the whole thing pretty much. And I wrote it a long, long time ago. I was living in BC, and I don't exactly know how old I was, but in my late teens, early 20s. And I was living in my buddy's basement, bachelor, and it was tight quarters. Like it wasn't a bachelor. He had his own bedroom, but he was never home. And I had set up a futon in his living room, and he was kind enough to let me crash there. I was away from my family. They were off in Portugal. I had come back. I had come back for a girl, but that's a whole other story. Let me just focus one story at a time, one epic monologue at a time. I was living on his on that futon in his place, and our schedules were drastically different, so I barely ever saw him. So I spent a lot of time in there alone. I had the guitar, and I was missing people generally, like my old life, and my family, and just feeling lost. So
You're in
and
another
sad.
country as well, right? So
Yeah, yeah. The rest of my family was in Portugal, and I grew up in Ontario, so being in BC, it still felt like another country. Still felt like far away from everything. So I wrote "Trying" there, at least the first few verses of it, maybe just one verse, I think, just general main verse, and then the guitar chords, and it stayed that way for years and years and years. Obviously, about 10 years, more than that. But yeah. Uh, so I played it for Michelle when, I'd play her old material all the time. Like I'd forget about songs and then suddenly remember them. And I go, oh yeah, hey, I remember that. I wrote this, blah, 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 blah. I play it for her, and she thought it was gorgeous and
Mm.
immediately started writing lyrics for it. Like I remember I was playing through, she immediately grabbed a notebook and started writing things down. Um, so we kind of hammered out another verse, and then and I recorded that version of it, and then just she sat with it for a little while, came back and sent me a whole bridge for it.
Yeah.
So she actually contributed more than 50% of the lyrical content of the song, but she'll never take credit that way. I thought it was just the greatest mishmash, the greatest like partnering and meeting up of two musical ideas or two points of view, or and even two eras. So I recorded it and I made her record her singing for me. She felt bashful about the singing, but I really love the sound of her voice, especially
Hmm.
for this song. Um, so yeah, that's how it came to be. And when I was done the song, I've been trying to make just a simple, not even a video, but just like a visual idea to post with songs, because it's impossible to get people to pay attention to just audio these
No,
days.
it
They need
doesn't
to have
work.
something visual.
We gotta have
Yeah.
some.
So I tried to make a real simple vid, but the more simple I tried to make, the more ideas I got for it, and the more complicated it ended up being. So
Yeah.
when you see it, it's this tic-tac-toe board, and it starts with X's and O's, but slowly those X's and the O's turn into little icons that all actually have something to do with Michelle's and mine relationship.
Oh,
Yeah. So
there's a
people that
metaphor
know
going in
us,
there.
and even people who have listened to Alone, a Love Story, the podcast, and seen the additional material that comes with it, because each episode has its own little like postcard. So you can really follow along and see little
Oh,
symbols of our personal history, our private history, but also the history that's been told through her book and through her podcast. I think I just love it. And when I was so proud when I played it for her, the response I got from her was everything I could have hoped for. It was really, really, really lovely.
well, that makes the song even better because in terms of it's got personal value.
Oh
It's
yeah, it's a real love letter to our story.
Yeah.
Tears and cuts and all.
I think that really resonates with people when his music is made specifically for one person. I think there's something about that.
The personal is the universal. Yeah,
Yeah, people
that's
really
another
like
thing.
that.
Yeah, that's another great lesson that I learned about songwriting some time ago. That when I used to try and write one of those universal songs, like songs that everybody at
Mm,
in a bar or a footy match
yeah,
could
yeah.
could sing along to, those arena anthems. Trying to write something universal like that, it always sounded false. It always sounded wooden and schmaltzy.
It is a
Um,
little cheesy, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah,
like anybody could tell that you're just being vague like that to please everybody. And
yeah.
and when I wrote things that were intensely personal, and would have individuals come up to me and go, when you said that, when you sing that part, that's the best part. I'm
Mm,
like, oh, I thought that was just for me. I didn't think anybody else would get that.
yeah,
No, I totally got that. And
yeah.
yeah, it was an intensely personal thing that I was reflecting upon, and everyone would comment on it. Everyone had some kind of, they would see themselves. You write something honest, and people will find it reflected in themselves if they are honest with themselves.
Well,
And there's
people are going
such
to
little
attribute the
honesty in
lyrics to
music.
their own lives, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel like there's so few moments of genuine truth in all the stories that we hear, that when it comes along, you really can clamp down on it. You can really focus on it. You can really pull it in.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things where you don't really know how someone else is going to hear the lyrics and think, "Oh, wait, that relates to them," even though that you don't know them at all. But that's exactly their story. They've been going through
Yeah,
that same thing
yeah.
somehow.
Well, when I know I was a kid, I was nervous about meeting people. When I was a teenager, I had as much anxiety as anybody else about, getting out there, going to a party, or being in a room full of people and trying to make conversation. Until I realized that most people are feeling the exact same thing. They're all as anxious, they're all as nervous, they all just want to be liked, like everyone. And that helped me relax a lot, and it helped me get this stuff out. Going, I might feel scared, or this might be embarrassing, but chances are everyone else is feeling the exact same thing. So now I can walk into a room and just go, you're as afraid of me as I am of you. So doesn't matter.
It's one of those strange things where you want to hear about like the vulnerability of someone else. You don't want to hear about how they're kicking ass all the time. I don't want to hear about that. This guy's winning. I don't care about that. Yeah. Unless it's like a 10 principles of success and you're like, screw you, right?
Yeah. When Kanye does it, you can, sometimes you genuinely feel like, I'm going to touch the sky. Yeah. But it's more forgivable when he's arrogant about it, because he also puts forth all those moments of insecurity. Was one of the first popular artists in the rap world that would make hits out of self-deprecation and self-reflection. Embarrassing self-reflection, sometimes like awkwardly embarrassing self-reflection, but he put it out there, and that's as ballsy a move as you can do.
Yeah, somehow we really like it when people are like, I messed up, and like, oh, he messed up, I want to hear about this. Yeah. Well, maybe I think that's why you get a lot of really successful YouTube channels where the person is self-deprecating, and that seems to take them to the next viral level.
Yeah. I mean, I have no idea what makes things go viral or what people like now. I know what I like, but if I see somebody who's too perfect, that's immediately...
You don't want to see them too much, Yeah.
Because I've known people who put out that outward perfection, and then I get a glimpse of what's going on, and they are dark on the inside.
Oh, yeah. You look at the Instagram, it's all happy. And then, ooh, what's going on behind those eyes?
You can look at their Instagram, but then you look at their camera roll and see how many thousands of pictures they took in order to pick that one, right one.
The best. Well, did you hear about Dan Blitzerman? You hear about all that?
No. What's that about?
You know who that guy is, right?
I don't think so. I have a hard time paying attention to the global events. Like, it took a lot for me to just check U.S. election results, force myself to do it, because okay, this is something I do need to know. But most of the time, it makes me very sad and feel very dark when I pay attention to the world outside, which is just something I've been going through in the last little while, COVID related, obviously. But yeah, tell me about this. Dan, what's his name?
So he was essentially the king of Instagram. So he had millions and millions of viewers and followers, and then it turns out he was just lying about all the things he was posting. All this stuff.
What kind of stuff was he posting?
Well, he's posting about how he's jet setting millionaires, and all these girls are just flocking him all the time on these photos. And it turns out, he might have been hiring them just for the photos. It's one of those scenarios.
Gross.
But he'd been doing it for years and years and years and years, and people just assumed he's a rich millionaire who's just raking in income somehow.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you can get away with it. It's just, what are you doing it for, right? I guess that's the thing. Can you figure out how to make something out of it?
Well, I don't know. I would even respect it, like, in a kind of a Joaquin Phoenix type of way, like if he was doing that as some kind of a social experiment and taking notes the whole time. And
what is this Joaquin Phoenix thing? I haven't heard of this.
Oh, well, just it was like a few years back. He went publicly crazy. Like he kind of put forth this persona of it's when he grew the beard, started wearing the dark glasses, and started behaving erratically. He was on Letterman and acted really weirdly. And it turns out that it was like kind of, I don't know if it was a publicity stunt or just like being completely method for a role that was coming up. I didn't pay enough attention to it. I peripherally heard him go nuts, and then I peripherally heard that it was all something else that wasn't what appeared to be on the surface.
Oh, it was all a stage act. Oh, well,
and
that's
I believe
the beauty.
It because he's a pretty talented actor, and I also believe that like he's pretty serious about what he does, and going method like that just sounds like right up his alley, you know?
Yeah.
Especially kind of an FU to the industry too.
Well, I mean, why not? Why not troll Instagram and Twitter people? Why not?
Yeah.
There's no reason why you have to be true on a fake when you're posting on fake news anyways? Why?
Yeah.
You're gonna be fakely copied, and people are gonna have their fake opinions about you. Why not you just generate fake stuff anyways?
I would find that I would come up with a whole persona to do it though, because also I get a lot out of posting something that's genuine, and I get a genuine reaction out of, like
True.
I'm of both minds. I like to use platforms like Instagram or whatever for showing beauty and telling truth and good stories and all the positive aspects. But man, it's super fun to fuck with people. I just would have a hard time mixing the two or finding when to do what.
Yeah, that's the problem. You can only really pick one avenue unless you make it like two different, entirely separate personalities. Because
That's what I'm saying.
You can't do both with one. Yeah, and no one's gonna trust you if you put fake stuff.
Yeah. You're kind of peeing on the feet of the other.
Yeah,
like the old saying goes, It doesn't. There's no old saying.
No. What about the bad guy? What's this song? What's going on here?
Funny enough, just
you got some cool cover video footage for that.
Oh
too.
yeah, thank you. That was fun to do. I mean, that was some work, but yeah. So bad guy, also to do with well, if I'm honest, it's to do with the ending of my relationship and how my friend Meg told me on an evening out with her and our mutual friend Candace, drinking and talking about my breakup, and she said basically I quoted her in the song. She says to me, "You're gonna have to be the bad guy because no one else is going to like you. You're gonna have to break her heart because she is not going to do it on her own. If it's up to her, she'll want to stay and work it out every single time. You got to. I know that you're a nice guy, but you're gonna have to be the bad guy and cut it off to stop the cycle."
Ooh, that's deep. Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh, I can feel that tension in that just alone. I haven't even got any further. I can feel the burning. Oh, ooh.
I literally stumbled home into bed that night after all those good times and drinks with them, and pulled out the phone, recorded it, and then sent it to Meg and Candace. And she said, "I gotta be a bad guy, be a good guy." I said, "It's gonna be a hit, number one." I remember she laughed at my drunken phone call, but I went ahead and finished it, and I did it the exact way that she quoted it to me in my mind, making very few adjustments for it. And then let's see. The video was just, I'd seen many people do the a cappella style video where they film themselves 4 different times harmonizing with themselves. And me being me, I was like, I'm going to take that and further make it even bigger and better. So I tried to set it up so that it was shooting 4 different angles of the same room. But I was doing it all myself and all kind of on the fly. So it didn't match up perfectly, but matched enough that I could kind of create the impression that it's, that I am the Beatles.
Yeah, that's right. You got
4 different guys.
Actually, that's one thing I wanted to bring up. You've got some crazy cover art in your past, just on Instagram and some of the other songs and things.
Oh, cool! Thank you.
What's going on with all of these? What's the inspiration behind some of these?
Oh, just trying to do something visually interesting.
But it looks like they're referencing some kind of thing behind the scenes that we don't know about.
Really? Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
You got the Beatles kind of imagery going for some of them.
Which one? The cover art for Bad Guy?
Well, yeah, that one for sure.
That one, yeah. You know what? If there's a Beatles thread running through them, I hadn't seen it, so this is interesting to hear from you. But it's just I'm a fan of good graphic design and really artful, sometimes minimalistic, but it doesn't have to be. But at the same time, colorful and kind of brilliant. Like in the traditional sense of the word brilliant, where it kind of shines of its own, natural luminescence, and good arrangements of colors, like groupings of colors that set a mood, using tones of colors to kind of group them and set a mood. I like vintage. I like a lot of texture in both my music and the art. I was really influenced by Tycho. Do you know this guy Tycho? Tycho.
Is he an EDM artist?
Yeah. He does instrumental stuff, and it sounds, EDM. It sounds all very computery, but somehow it's textured so that it sounds like he's sampling stuff from the 80s and new age stuff from the 90s, all making it sound modern and at the same time still retro. It's incredible. But he also used to be a graphic designer, so his cover art is so crisp. So I was heavily influenced by that stuff. So I'm trying to do that. And at the same time, my stuff sounds very 80s-ish sometimes, either in the sonic textures or just the songwriting style. So, there's always some throwback feel to the 80s when I do something visual. And that's the stuff that's I'm 45 years old. So that's the stuff that I was raised on. The first visual images. I remember the first time I saw Much Music, or was it Much Music? Yeah, first time it was a brand new video for Girls Just Want to Have Fun, and Thriller, and Sunglasses at Night.
Sunglasses at Night.
Yeah,
that song still gets referenced everywhere you go.
Yeah, good song.
And really people who haven't heard the song, they're like, I know. No, maybe it's one of those things where you just gotta hit like a chord, like just the specific sentence. Somehow, girls just want to have fun. Sunglasses at night.
Yeah,
it's just you got to get that phrase, whatever that is.
Yeah, a cute little phrase, an idea, and then if you can just blab about it for 3 minutes, solid gold.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not. I mean, the song's good. It's fine as well, but there's something about as soon as you say the name, people know that's the one. That's the one I do want to do in karaoke.
Oh yeah. Yeah, karaoke is fun. I used to be so up my own ass about it that I didn't want to do karaoke because I don't want to sing other people's songs. I want to sing my song. And my songs are the good songs. I'm going to be a superstar. I'm going to sing just my songs. I'm not going to. Oh,
yeah, no, I get that. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah,
I'm original. I'm an artist. I want to do my own stuff only.
And now I love it. I love karaoke. It's one of my favorite things to go out and do. I miss it a lot. I miss doing karaoke.
Well, you do Mr. Brightside now and then. I've seen you've done that one a few times.
I did that one, and one of my favorites to do is now Michael Sambello's Maniac from Flashdance.
Yeah.
And I really want to be able to do Take On Me by but without asking the DJ to pitch it down. So it's a real struggle to hit that. Hit that high note while and hold it
high note.
And key. Yeah.
But that one's definitely fun to do for karaoke, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Doing it for karaoke. I want to be able to do it for karaoke and sing that high note without asking the DJ to pitch down the song so that I can reach that high note.
Yeah, I wonder when karaoke bars are really gonna come back again, because they're out the picture at the moment, right?
I mean, there are very few places that I've seen. One place called Tonight Bar, really cool place on Queen Street that does musical performances. They managed to glass off the stage so that their performers can be secluded, and then have people outside and feed the live video to the patio in the back. I'm not sure if they do it out front, but I know that they were doing it in the back. As long as while it was still legal to do that.
It's like a drive-in theater, but for their shows.
Yeah, for shows.
Oh, that's cool. No, people are coming up with some really innovative ways to do things now in terms of shows. I mean, there's like live shows of course on online, YouTube and Zoom, whatever.
Yeah, but just the same way that you watch like live versions of The Tonight Show or whatever.
Yeah, isn't that strange?
Isn't it weird? I almost would rather they use the canned laughter from like Gilligan's Island to just fill in the space. Even just make that part of the joke, have the soundboard right there, and Jimmy just hits a button every time he tells a joke, and we hear bah ha 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 ha.
Yeah, you want to hear it doesn't feel right when it's silence.
It's weird.
Even like that's supposed to be a joke, but there wasn't a laugh.
Yeah, you have to question. Do I find that funny? Really?
Now you have to decide, is it funny? Yeah, you didn't have to decide before.
Like? This is too introspective. I'm just going to masturbate and go to bed.
No, it's true. You really have to it feels like it's now breaking the fourth wall. Like you never had to deal with that beforehand with a talk show. It felt so unpersonal.
Right? Yeah. And now it's almost too personal. It's
very personal.
Very intimate.
I was watching a video the other day. It was talking about why is the fourth wall so uncomfortable? Like, why is it so especially when they're in like a movie or something and they're just doing, and then they turn to the camera and go, right? And you're like, hmm.
Is it uncomfortable? Do you find it that way?
Well, it definitely feels, you notice it stands out.
It stands out. You notice that you've seen Fleabag, right? You watched that show Fleabag?
No, what's this one?
No? Okay, so it's a UK show and it's by Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Oh, I'm messing up her name. Sorry, but I can't quite. But I can totally picture her face. And I'm a huge fan of hers. She's got one of those names I haven't committed to memory yet. But basically, she wrote that and shot that. It's amazing. She's also she was the voice of the droid in the Solo movie. She did Killing Eve. She wrote all that. She's been, and she's, I think, helping out with the next, or she wrote the next Bond film, or helped write the next Bond. Yeah, so she's amazing. Anyway, so Fleabag, she is, modern woman in London on the dating scene, and very self-effacing, very honest, brutally honest, awkward, and she'll break the scene just a second to address the camera with her brutally honest kind of confessions or observations. It's really cool. It's been done before, but the way that she does it, it's very funny. It's very honest, and it doesn't interfere with the show. Like, it's just really, really well done. And then what she does in the second series, this is going to be a major spoiler, not a major spoiler alert, but you'll notice a change when this change happens in the second series. The shift that I felt in watching was strong. She starts dating someone who calls her on it. Okay, so like she does the thing to the camera, and he goes, "Where did you go just there?"
Ooh.
Like, what?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Does that give you chills? And so she goes to do it again. He's like, "Hey, stop that!" She goes, "What?" She goes,
"There's levels."
Yeah,
levels of the fifth wall.
Yeah, and it doesn't so much break the fifth wall as it kind of says, "Hey, we do this. We have a personal fourth wall." It doesn't so much break the fourth wall as now it kind of makes us realize that we have a personal fourth wall that we carry around with us during every exchange. Like, how many times have you been having a conversation with somebody and you have an aside to yourself in your mind, which would be exactly the type of thing that she would do to the camera, and you have stepped out of the interaction for a moment. And your close friends might call you on it, but most people won't.
Yeah, well, I think that's why that those movies, What Men Want and What Women Want.
Oh yeah,
they can read the other person's mind is so relatable, right?
Yeah. And despite the trappings of liking a Mel Gibson movie, when it came out, I was still kind of enamored with Mel Gibson from his what do you call it, Lethal Weapon days. Such a romantic anti-hero when I was young, so I gave him a wide berth for the movies he put out after. But then as soon as that shit happened with, all of his stuff happened, I was like, oh, shit on that guy, fuck him. But actually kind of harshly, because he broke my heart so much, right? But yeah, I saw him in that movie. I never saw, like, I loved What Women Want. I always wanted to have that kind of power, like, not the power,
well, he
but
showed you why you shouldn't have that power.
In a movie style way, like in a very kind of well scripted 3-act kind of way where everything happens just so that you can wrap this up and go home in 2 hours. But that doesn't really explore the concept to the degree that I would like it explored personally. It'd be more of a book idea than a movie idea. But I never saw the other one with what's her name, Taraji P. Henson, and her.
The one with What Men Want.
What Men Want. Yeah, I didn't see that one. I'm intrigued, but just never got around to it.
Well, it's similar premise, except it's from, you hear all the chauvinistic thoughts of the men, right?
Yeah.
So you got all that.
Well, now I know what I'm watching tonight for sure. Something good
I was a little skeptical too, but it's still a good movie.
Yeah.
And the choice of character that they use for the person who has the special power, this is an interesting choice of a profile that they pick.
Yeah.
Because it's this really strong, independent woman.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so she's someone who's not going to be bothered in general. So it's a nice choice of character that they chose for it.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's funny because some of the women I've loved the most in my life have been strong women like that. And I've been fortunate enough that they've been patient with me and taught me what they learned instead of me having to learn everything the hard way by losing out on love because of my own behaviors. And I'm going to talk about, like, I've been a terrible guy, but even the good guys have done dumb stuff. And that's what I kind of, modestly try to slip myself into the category of a good guy who's made dumb mistakes, but my intentions are good. So I've been fortunate enough to be taught by really strong women. And that when you start describing that person, I'm like, yes, you know what? That reminds me of so-and-so telling me a story of what her day was like, the kind of shit that gets thrown in her face on a daily, hourly, like minutely basis, and how different a world it is for women than for men. I had a friend who would come over and visit me regularly in my Parkdale apartment, and she would say, well, do you mind walking me down to my car? I'm like, oh my God, how can I not think about that? How can I not offer already? How can I not be offering? I felt so bad that she would have to ask for me to walk her down to her car because it's not a safe neighborhood, especially not at night.
Yeah. That's something that we really take for we don't think about walking down dark alleys so much. It's really not something that I think about all the time, but that's something that is a factor.
Yeah, a huge concern. It's something that is in the back of women's minds and doesn't even enter the front of ours.
Yeah.
Speaking generally.
Oh, for sure. I think that's why I enjoy horror movies where you have a character who's like not scared of ghosts. There's something about that.
Yeah.
That I really enjoy.
You need to have a cynic and to have a good balanced story that adds the realism to actually make it scary. I mean, it's no fun just watching a bunch of Scooby-Doo cartoons where everyone's scared about the thing they're supposed to be scared of. No one's questioning anything.
Yeah. You always really want to see the guys like, I'm going to punch this ghost.
Yeah.
You want to see that guy.
Yeah. Or this, there's something else going on here. You don't just fall for the obvious trick.
Yeah. I think there's a bunch of parodies where they put in people who like really macho men or really macho women or whatever into like a haunted house, and then like ghosts try to attack them, they just get their ass kicked by the character. Actually, that's why I didn't find It 2. Did you see It 1 and It 2?
I did, yeah.
I found It 1 very scary, but I didn't find It 2 scary. I think just because the characters look tough,
That and you're right, and I do see that as well. But also, for me to be engaged in a story, I have to understand the rules that they're setting up. And with horror movies, sometimes it feels like they can make up anything for any reason, and you're just supposed to go with it. So I like movies that set up a system of, and like Get Out is a perfect example. It sets up the rules, and you understand exactly why you're afraid, what the limits are, what the barriers are for the characters, why they can't just do this, and so you have to think you have to solve the puzzle while you're watching the movie, and the rules of the puzzle are clearly laid out. But then with it's like there's no consistent logic for what the clown can do, what it can't do.
You don't know
where it's going to pop up, when to be afraid, when to not be afraid.
You don't know.
And instead of making it more scary, it just makes it dumb because none of it makes any sense.
You don't know the motivation.
Yeah.
You never find it out, really.
He's an alien or something like that?
You don't really know.
Isn't it pretty clear at the end of It 2? I'm not going to even bother saying spoiler alert because fuck it.
Well, I guess that's one way to interpret it. I didn't actually quite make that connection, but I guess that does seem to be one way to think of it.
It's the way I remember it, and I could be totally wrong because I only saw it once and I didn't see any of the other versions of it or read the books, but it made it seem like it was an alien life form that I think like I don't know, possessed or took the form of a human, and fed on fear. So, okay, it fed on fear. I mean,
well, all right, we'll take that.
It just makes me go, okay, so how did this alien creature come into existence in some other world? Did it always feed on fear? How did it grow and evolve as a species? If it was just feeding on fear, what are the rest of its, what's the rest of its species like? And how did it get here? And just too many questions for it to be fun at the end of it.
I remember I was reading, I've been trying to write things for a little while. And when I was taking some writing workshop and courses, and one of the things they were saying is you want to have a character. Well, this is one way to approach. You would like to have a character who's thrown into a world, who's trying to discover the rules at the same time you're reading. So like as they discover, you discover. And somehow that itself is very exciting. Yeah. And that's why like Harry Potter, because Harry Potter doesn't know the rules of the world and he's finding them out as he goes through it.
Yeah. That's why Doctor Who always has to have a companion because
Yes.
he knows everything that's going on.
Yes.
All of his ventures could take place without him saying a word because he just knows what to do, blah, blah, blah. When he has to explain it to the companion, that's him explaining it to us. And the reason why it's so great is because he finds an interesting way to explain it over and over again. Cute, fun, interesting, and honest ways of explaining things to us, the audience, as well as his sidekicks and companions.
Yeah, and it seems important that they don't actually find out all the rules in the beginning. They have to spread. They have to reveal the more important rules later. You only get glimpses earlier on.
Yeah, but it does set up cool ways of explaining time travel is I love time travel movies and stories. It's my absolute favorite. And I'm a pretty big stickler about what's actually a time travel, what counts as a time travel story. Like, clutch your pearls. Back to the Future is not a time travel story. Not in my books.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that not a time travel story?
It's a period piece. Okay. It all happens. Back to the Future 1 happens in the 60s. We go there at the beginning of the movie and then we get out at the end. But getting out at the end is just the goal of the story. It doesn't actually, there's no time travel involved within the story. They don't use time travel to accomplish A, B, C, or D. For them, the goal is the time travel. It's not a part of the story. It's the goal at the end. And even that, it's just arbitrary. It's just, basically, it's not even time travel. It's just space travel. You're just going from one place in the 60s to another place in the 80s.
A vacation movie.
Yeah. It's a vacation movie. However, Back to the Future 2 is very much a time travel story because they're using time travel elements. We're using it as a tool. It's a part of the story. Yeah. So I love time travel stories, and they're really hard to write because when you have time travel, you have an instant out at the end of everything. You know, theoretically, if you can travel in time, then you can go back to the beginning of the story and stop whatever moment of conflict happens. So it's really difficult to tell those stories effectively and creatively and satisfyingly. And Doctor Who manages to do it. They set up little rules. They explain, time isn't linear. It's kind of a jumbled up ball of wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, okay, well, the 1,000-year-old space traveler explains it like that. That's the best he can do. It must be so complex that it just can't be explained to us, we pea brains. And I don't mind that as long as it's done with charm, and they do it with charm.
They do it with charm. He's always very charming, Doctor.
Yeah. Except the latest iteration, but we won't go into it.
I've been trying to write a time travel. I've got this basic plot structured out, but I don't like how the end is. You kind of have to wrap up the ending in order to make the time travel. Well, it's one of those loopy things where one thing causes the other that caused the first thing.
Right.
But because I'm trying to fit it into that, I have to come back to the beginning. And it seems like it's really obvious. You know?
Well, so let me ask you, have you created a set of rules for your universe? Because remember we were talking about the rules for the horror thing. It pissed me off not knowing them. So if you have a set of rules, you know what you can do, what you can't do. And if you have to also do a good job of presenting them to your audience. But first, you need to decide what they are. So have you decided what the rules for this universe you're creating?
Well, let me tell you the premise of the story. I don't mind spelling this. So the idea is I walk into a room and I see myself dead. I see my dead body of myself.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay. And there's I think he has a phone on him. And the phone is from a date in the future. So I know that it came from the future. That's how, for references. So I know that this is going to happen. And there's notes of text messages and things on the phone. Mm-hmm. So I'm using that to figure out what happened.
Okay.
So that's the general first thing that unleashes the rest of the story.
All right.
Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, I want to stop myself from dying. But reading through these text messages, I'm trying to figure out what led to this.
Yeah.
And so now that I know that these text messages are here, I'm not going to send these texts. But I also know that the sequence of events kind of is destined to sort of unfold. It would happen if I hadn't seen this phone.
Okay. Or at least that's the question that your character is asking himself.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So you have to decide, is this time travel take place the different theories about time travel include one where we create different dimensions if we, for instance, go back in time and change an event, or we go back in time and change an event. Does that affect who went back in time in the first place? an action in your past affect your own future, or does it create a separate future?
Yeah. So I think this premise, because I've seen the text messages, I think I'm not going to send those text messages. But I can see that there's a version that's happened.
There's a third school of thought, which is that if you see those messages, it's because the actions that you have taken upon seeing those messages have already taken place and created those messages, and you're in an inescapable fate.
Yeah, that is another way to do it as well.
Yeah. So
but the problem is, if I do that one, then that means I have to throw myself into a scenario where I kill myself. That's the thing that's uncomfortable, because then it's like I have to force the events to line up to that. You know?
Well, that's the crisis of your character.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that on its own is probably going to be one of the chapters of a discussion of the character that he'll have this introspective, like, oh shoot, I'm gonna.
Well, he's got to in some way, because your audience for sure will be doing that in their heads. So they're either going to be flowing with your movie or completely distracted from your movie. Yeah,
like I think that's fun. But I also I like the idea that he tries to change it, and then I want to see what that would lead to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have like a bunch of events that would lead to it and where it would come from, but I haven't quite figured out whether I like the ending resolution or not. That's the only thing I'm toying with.
Well, I got a long list of time travel movies that explore all these different ways of telling the story. And and I saw Tenet, the latest Christopher Nolan movie.
What'd you think of that?
I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. I got to see it again to catch everything, of course. I followed the general premise. Even if you don't follow the general premise, it's a great flick to watch. But it's one of those things where you got to go back and see it again. But one of my favorite time travel movies, and movies itself, even though it's a very independent and kind of a mumblecore style movie, is it's called Primer.
Oh, I've seen that. Yes. Yes, I know that movie.
Love that movie.
That one is impossible to follow the first time.
They had a thing where if you kept your movie ticket stub, that you could go back and see it again for free, just to be able to sort it out. Yeah. I was going to actually, with Stella, the games mistress from tonight's online streaming D&D game. I was going to get her to come back with me and go and see the movie, and we never arranged schedules while it was in the theaters. But yeah, I really love that movie. The concept is great. It was a great little. It was one of the things that hadn't been explored in a movie, like that particular style of time travel, where the traveling itself took time to do, and we saw the story from several different viewpoints of the different characters without being, and we weren't aware of when it was happening. The time travel was woven into the story so well that when it was revealed, you were like, oh, bang. Like every time it happened, your mind had to reel and catch up for a second with what it means.
I actually haven't quite understood the plot yet. Like I've seen it once or twice, but I still don't quite get it. And I think I just need to see it more, and then I'll think.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to have a whole discussion about it, but if you're not fresh on it, but basically, one of the great things about it is that it doesn't explain everything for the audience. The audience has to, and it's not like the audience has to interpret. No, you don't have to interpret. Like it's laid out for you. You just have to follow along, pay attention, and follow along. I liked it that it didn't explain everything, and I had to pay attention and follow along. That engaged me, but I didn't have to think about what this means and decide for myself what it meant. Like, no, it's laid out for you. You just have to follow the ride.
It's like a Sudoku puzzle. The answer's there.
Yes. Yeah. But it's not a philosophy paper. It's a Sudoku puzzle.
It's there, but you got to make a few educated guesses which are right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't want them to do my homework not homework. I don't want them to do the puzzle for me, but the puzzle needs to be a coherent piece when it's done. Otherwise, it's not very satisfying. All right.
So it looks like it's been an hour, but is there anything you want to promote before we wrap up this particular episode?
I have a new song and video coming out. 2 new songs, but only 1 new video so far coming out. The songs are recorded, so I'm working on the videos, like as I said. But the next one that's coming out is called Hey Music.
Hey Music.
And it's my love song to music. So, I was trying to write from that point of view of an anthem that everyone can get along with. And I'm like, really? No, this is just stupid. Just write the actual thing that you thought in that shower that one time. So I wrote that. And then the rest is just I tried to stuff it full of references to songs that have been earworms, have been in my brain, have been a part of my musical makeup for so long. So the song is called Hey Music, and the video, I'm waiting to get some footage from my sister because she's over in the UK with her two sons, and they're little boys. I want to get them dancing to my song and have her shoot the footage, send it over to me, and I'm going to chop it up. And because they're just little kids, I'm actually going to put my face on top of their faces, jib jab style, to have just the little kids. Because, man, you can't go wrong with dogs and babies. So
no, guaranteed.
Get some babies dancing and make it nice and simple and get that out there right away. So I'm just waiting for, but, poor thing, she's got to deal with a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, I think, are the ages. So trying to wrangle them up and make them do something, putting kids in the show business, that's never a successful first-time venture. So she's already sent me one. She's like, I tried to do it, but it's kind of a disaster. Take a look. And they're dancing around, but they're kind of like not that into it. And one just starts twirling and the other one just falls on his butt and starts crying. And she's like, oh, and then it just cuts.
No resolving.
Yeah. So then she sent me another one, tried to do it again. It really is a lot of wrangling. So I thought it was going to be a lot easier, but I'm just hoping that my sister will be patient enough to get some footage that I can chop up.
Well, it's coming up. It's coming soon then. Hey
Music. Hey Music by Yahenda.
By Yahenda. Everywhere. Thanks for being on the show, everyone. This is Sergio Yahenda, and check out his music.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on the show. This was a nice chat, man. We'll do it again anytime you want.
Absolutely. Thanks a bunch.
Right.
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 Absolutely. Thanks a bunch.
Right.